What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday, new episode of the podcast. In today's episode, I chat with Annie Van Epps. She's based out of New York. She hosts comedy shows and she performs regularly at the Tiny Cupboard, which is apparently an amazing venue in Bushwick, New York. She's incredibly hilarious. She also talks about what it's like to host a show, like all of the little details that go into it and how a host can raise the audience up if, say, they don't enjoy one of the comics and their moods are just kind of, oh man, that guy kind of sucked. Then she tells me how she goes about bringing them back up to a place of joy, because we all know a lot of people are funny and sometimes people aren't funny. Well, that sounded kind of really corny. Anyways, Annie's awesome. I hope she continues to gain popularity throughout the months. Just an incredibly laid back chat. She's super down to earth. You can follow her on Instagram at Annie in the City 2020. Well, without further ado, let's do this. I'm a dork, whatever.
Okay, the worst thing, because I've done a lot of Zoom shows, the worst thing is when they have like whoever's talking is pinned, but then somebody will laugh and it'll switch to that person really fast and then go back to the person who's talking, and I'm like, oh, what a
that's kind of awkward. Yeah, I did. So I want to talk to you about, I guess, since we were kind of on that topic first. So have you done like a good amount of those Zoom shows? I've only actually attended one of them. I'm like, wow, this is really interesting.
Interesting is a word.
Yeah, I say interesting a lot. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like, it wasn't bad. I'm like, I'll take it, whatever.
I don't know. I feel like, I guess it's a good practice to like, because I know a lot of comedians, when they do shows, if there's silence, they don't like that. They like to hear laughter, but I'm like, silence is actually great because it means people are listening. But like when I do Zoom shows, I never think about the laughs. I'm just like, if it's quiet, either nobody's listening or people are listening and they're not laughing, which is the second best thing for me. Because I think when you first start out and you do comedy, you have to really eat shit a lot. So like you'll perform and like people will be talking, or like even some shows when you get like what is that called when people talk during your set? I just heard of a horrible circumstance of this lady talking on her phone in the front row at someone's show. And
I've heard some stories along those lines.
So, but I one of my friends, or I don't know, he's like an acquaintance. He runs a weekly show, and he was like, "Yeah, you should come and watch and like just be an audience member." And I was like, "I guess I'll support." And the headliner was like trying to do crowd work at a Zoom show, which is not the best idea.
Yeah, that's I imagine that's a little awkward.
It was well for me. The guy was like, my camera was really dark, so you could barely see me, and he was like, he called me a she-male, and I was like, log out, goodbye, never coming back.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, that is bad.
I don't know. Like, I don't even do it. I'm just like a fan of the stuff, but I know there's just certain things you don't say.
Yeah.
There's just certain things they're just forbidden, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like the old fashioned kind of version of doing comedy where you just like say whatever you want and don't care about I don't know. But like the point is for me with comedy, it just should be funny, but don't, I don't know. I have a lot of trans friends that do stand up and they're hilarious. And I was like, if I were them and that person would have said that to me, that would have been horrible.
Yeah.
So
It's there's I don't know, like it's weird. Like if it's something that's like I don't get offended really easily at all, but like there's certain little things that if that just strike a chord where I'm like, no, you shouldn't say that.
yeah.
And I think everybody's different. So what you're saying basically is like the Zoom thing is kind of like basically like a good practice. Like you write some stuff. Well, let me practice. I'd imagine even trying to do the crowd work on that, it's awkward because there could be like delays depending on the connection. And
Oh yeah, that's true.
I don't know, like I was like, the first one I attended, like I logged in and I was like, okay. And everybody was muted. And the host was like, come on guys, unmute your cameras so they can hear you laughing. And I was like maybe one of 5 people that unmuted themselves. Like, I don't know.
I think it also really depends on the host because there's a really good open mic that I do that didn't used to be Zoom, obviously before COVID, but it is now, and it's called the Anne Hathaway mic.
Uh-huh.
This girl, Gabriel. Oh my God, Gabriel Jordan. I'm so bad. I don't know. She's great. She's really funny. But yeah, I like her Zoom mic because it's always really short for people that have ADD. It's only like 10 people, and we kind of all know each other. So, and a lot of the people that do her mic are funny, so it's easy to listen.
That sounds fun. I mean, I've always been like, I don't know, I've always been into like watching and listening to like stand up, but like I think of just the getting on stage and just like writing your own jokes or what you think is funny. And then like, but I've heard like even from all the people I've talked to already, like like you said, eat shit. Like you have to like bomb for like a while. Like it's gonna happen. And just the idea of like that's always been like a fantasy in the back of my head, but like I wouldn't even have the balls to attempt it. Like like I'm one of those guys, like my friends tell me like I'm funny when I'm not trying to be. Like I'm like awkwardly or goofy funny. Like it's just I can't imagine sitting there and trying to write something down. Or I mean, I'll see stuff when I'm out and about and I'm like, oh, that's funny, but I've never actually, the process has always just intrigued me.
Well, for me, when if you're asking, and what is your process? I don't know.
No.
Um, but I was just thinking about that. Like I don't really write anything down. Like when I first started doing stand up, I would write everything like word for word, but it's just exhausting. And it also helps to like writing something down and verbalizing it are two different things, at least for me.
Yeah.
So like usually if I'm writing a joke, I'm doing air quotes right now.
I do them too. It's okay. Air quotes are perfectly normal.
I'm usually talking it out. So I'll have like an idea or something will happen in real life and I'll just write down just the idea. I won't write down everything.
Okay.
And then I'll go for a long walk and kind of just like roll it through my head or like talk out loud to myself.
Kind of
Or
like how
go
you
to
should
like,
say it or whatever.
yeah, or go to like an empty field in Prospect Park and just like talk it out. So basically, it also helps you getting used to talking out loud and looking like a crazy person because people will hear you. I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
if you're like walking the loop in Prospect Park, which I am a lot, I'll just talk out loud. And that's, just getting used to that, like being verbal and
Yeah.
doing your jokes. That really helps me.
So what you're saying is like, and I do this for some things too. Like I'll write like kind of like bullet points or just like talking points. I won't like write out an actual full blown question. I'll just put a few words.
Mhm.
Is that kind of similar to what you do? You'll just like write like a few words just so you kind of know what the joke is, and then you just kind of go over it in your head.
Yeah, or like sometimes when I'm talking out loud, things will just pop out that I
Yeah.
haven't thought of before, or I'm like, oh, that's good. And then I'll write down that note so I remember it. And then every time I perform, I record myself because I ad lib a lot from hosting. And so I'll go back and like listen to myself and like pull things out and then write jokes.
Now, when you say like hosting, like in terms of like ad libbing, like that's just off the cuff, like just is that how you do
Yes.
it? Like I just don't see how that's possible. Like I'm not that quick. There's no way I could just go out there and just say something without not having something memorized. Like that blows my mind. So like that, you do a lot of that, like when you're hosting.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. That's part of the gig, but
Okay.
it's so weird because when I first started doing stand up, and then there's kind of like a, I don't know, a getting used to it period, and then after you get used to it, I don't know, you just hit different you overcome different things. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just like when I was first starting doing stand up, I was so shy. Just getting on
Oh,
stage and saying anything, that
yeah.
was my goal. Like I didn't care about if people laughed or anything, or if people thought my jokes were funny. The point was to get on stage, get comfortable up there, and just like hear myself talk in a microphone. And that was all I cared about. And that part took a while. Um,
Yeah,
but
like with, I'm sorry, I was just
uh,
gonna say, yeah, with me, like I'm incredibly shy. Like even in like high school, when I'd have to get up in front of the class and like do my presentation, I'd be like just like in a shell. Like I didn't want to talk.
yeah.
It's horrible.
Well, one of the first things, I'm going to go back to what you said, asked me before about hosting, but one thing that I had to get used to, and I don't think people even think about this, is learning how to stand still and just being like present.
Yeah.
Because like I've noticed a lot of comics will pace, or like I've seen comics just lean on the wall, and I'm like, as a person watching, I just feel nervous for them. Like I'm worried about them, and like you don't want your audience to not hear your jokes because,
Like at the outdoor shows specifically, just kind of leaning against the wall or just in general.
oh no, just like at any this is like pre-COVID, like people leaning on like the brick wall behind them, or like pacing back and forth. Like that pacing really like is distracting for me, so I won't really listen to what they're saying. But like just learning how to be up there and be still, like that took me a little bit of time to learn. But now like it really is the best advice any comedian can give someone who's just starting, is like just keep doing it. I mean, that's the only,
Yeah,
like, that's
that's
what really helps. But for hosting, since I'm doing it so much now that it's just feels normal, and like I don't get, I get nervous sometimes, but I usually don't. But I'll like prepare my set. So when I do the Tiny Cupboard show on Tuesdays, I'll do a set at the beginning, and then when different comics are up there, I'll write down things that they say that remind me of something else, and then I'll comment on it in between. But sometimes I won't have anything, and I'll just say something. I don't know. I don't. It's different.
just whatever
Um,
comes to your head.
yeah. And I started. Let's see. I started doing that show the beginning of August, I think, and now I'm hosting 3 times a week, and or sorry, 4 times a week. Um, and like, yes, was it yesterday? I started a new open mic at the Tiny Cupboard. It's for women and LGBTQ and minorities. And
I
I was,
saw your thing on Instagram about that.
yeah, yeah, and it went really well, and it's weird being there without, like, when I first got there, there's nobody there because my mic is the first thing.
Yeah.
And this guy was really beautiful. This is like not related to what I'm talking about, but it was crazy how beautiful this guy was. Um, but I was like, I was just up here yesterday. And it's like a totally different vibe. I'm like, it's just so much chiller. But I'm going off on a tangent. I don't know.
No, it's fine. That it happens. Yeah, I
It's
wanted.
different every time I host, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
It's funny because like when I got into like, and I've told this story on previous ones, like when I've always liked watching and listening to stand-up comedy, but years ago it was just more of like the bigger people, like the bigger specials and stuff like that, the super popular ones. But now like it's crazy. Like this pandemic was in a way a blessing because like I've just discovered so many people
Hmm.
that are, nowhere near as popular as they should be. And I find that for me personally, I tend to find them much funnier than I don't know if that makes sense at all. And
Um,
I've been just hooked on like watching all these like clips on Instagram and YouTube of like all these outdoor comedy shows, and it just fascinates the hell out of me. I'm like, man, I want to go to New York and go to one of those.
yeah, I mean, you can go to them all the time because they're all. Well, you know what? One thing that's really interesting right now is because the entertainment industry shut down pretty much.
Hmm.
Like you can get really big names on your shows because like my shows are free, so people just say yes because they're just itching to perform.
Yeah.
And then also, like it was crazy. Last Friday, I just went to this show to meet the people that run it and just check it out. I mean, it's in the park, it's near me, so I'm like, I'll just check it out. And the one girl always promotes my shows, and I don't even know her, and I'm like, this is so awesome. But anyway, I was there, and there was, I'm trying to remember, there was one guy from LA. Actually, they had three people from LA, but one of them is on the show, Nikki Fresh, and he just came out and performed.
The name sounds familiar.
It's the show is with Nicole Richie, and then he's on the show too. He's a stand-up comic, and then
Okay. Yeah.
Joe. But yeah, he was just there, under a tree in Prospect Park, just doing a little show for whoever. And I'm like, this is surreal, so
Get going back to the hosting thing. Like, yeah, because I've only actual live in person comedy shows, and this sounds horrible. I've only been to two, and the first one I went to this.
wait, where do you live?
I live in Virginia.
Oh, well, that's probably
Yeah,
why.
there's I think around here there's just I live about 40 minutes south of DC. I know there's a DC Improv. I think there's a DC Draft House, and there's Arlington Draft House, and then there's like a Funny Bone in Richmond, which is like about an hour and a half south of me, and that's it
So wait,
that
how
I know
far,
of.
how far away do you live from Washington, D.C.?
About 40 minutes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's shows there, stand-up shows there a lot, I think.
But it's just I just never really went to one. Like I went to this Funny Bone in Richmond probably a little over 10 years ago. I don't remember who I saw there because I was under the influence, but it was a good time. It was very intimate. It's a small building, so like you sit down and like the stage is literally right in front of you, and I love that. And I don't know, like I don't have depression, but like with the pandemic, I just got like really like just mentally in a dark place, and then I just started randomly listening and discovering all this stuff, and I'm like, man, and I'm like, oh, a Zoom show, let me buy tickets to this, and I went to September 25th, end of September, I went to a show indoors, was socially distanced, which was interesting. Every seat was full, but they were spread apart by like seats of two.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. It was cool, but I definitely want to go to more because I just find them really fun.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is with the hosting, I've always heard that term host, and it's crazy. Like I didn't really know what that meant until recently. So like the host is basically, and I'm asking you this too to elaborate. The host is basically who opens it. They do like a few minutes of like their own set, and they kind of talk briefly in between the comics and introduce the other comics. That's basically what the host does.
Yeah. It
Okay.
also sort of the way the host acts changes the feel or the energy of the show. So, like, if a comic bombs, you're supposed to like bring the crowd back up.
Okay, so it's up to you to
Yeah, but
get
my
people
style
laughing
is
again. And
different. Yeah, I have a different style. I mean, people like it, seem to like it, so it's good because I'm not going to change.
yeah,
But I mean, I shouldn't say that. I do change, but like my style is like I don't really have a filter, but I am nice though, but I don't let people walk on me. So like I was talking to some of my stand-up friends yesterday actually, and they were like, "Oh my god," and we burst out laughing when this happened. Do you remember? So I'll just tell you. So I had this comic come and perform, and he's like a big deal. He's been doing comedy for like 10 years, and he came from Philadelphia, I think, to do a bunch of shows.
uh-huh.
And he came, and I didn't know if he was going to show up or not. And he came, and he basically just gave up right away. Like, he didn't even try to tell jokes. I was like, this
Uh,
is horrible. Like, why did he even bother? I don't know. It just seems like if somebody gives you time, especially now, like it's harder to find places to perform.
yeah.
It just seems like you shouldn't do that. So when I got on stage, I was like, wow, that's the first time I've had a headliner choose to bomb. And everybody loved that I said that because I guess everybody was thinking it and they were like, couldn't believe that I
And
said
that, and that probably got a lot of laughter, I'm assuming.
yeah, they liked it. And then I was like, I love your outfit, but yeah, but it was I don't know, it's just so weird to
Like
me.
I that yeah, that's and it was a headliner too. That's horrible.
I know. Check out this lady.
That's a big fur ball.
She came over here, so
Now, what was I gonna ask? Her, you mentioned the tiny cupboard a lot, and I've actually heard of that other places too. So that's literally, what is it? Is it on the top of a building? Is the building called the tiny cupboard, or is it like a cafe or something?
so the tiny cupboard, I knew them before COVID, and originally they were like this small indoor space and they would have like tiny shows. So like
Just for comedy?
yeah, comedy, and
Okay.
I think they did music too. And I liked it there. I don't know, I just like the vibe. The people that run it, Amy and Matt, they're really cool. But then when um COVID, I'm trying to remember. I want to say like maybe in May or June, they started doing just Zoom shows online. And they reached out to me and asked me if I'd be interested in hosting a show. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then I didn't, at the time, I can't remember if I knew it was going to be live or not. But I was like, sure. So that's what started it. And then I I co-produce it, so I do all the booking and stuff for the shows. And then I started my own open mic in Prospect Park, which is in Brooklyn. Since you live in Virginia,
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've literally only been to New York once.
okay. So yeah, so I live in Brooklyn, and at the time over the summer, like there were some open mics started popping up in Central Park, but that's like an hour from me, or it takes a while to get there. And I was just
Hmm.
like, oh man, I don't want to go all the way up there for to do 5 minutes. That sucks. So I was like, there aren't any open mics. I'll just start one in Prospect Park. I'm sure there's other comics that would be interested. So I started hosting that. And it's also awesome because if you produce your own open mics, you get to decide how long people get. And I also really hate timing myself.
Yeah.
So I always like I'll also do this for people. Like if I really like their comedy, I won't time them. And then it's I always break the rules. You're not supposed to do that. But
You just kind of let them go for, if they go over a little bit, that's totally fine.
well, and my mic has gotten really popular, and from it I've actually like developed a lot of really awesome friendships. And they're all people that I feel like are really funny and they're just going to get better. Like it just
Yeah.
feels like the 1920s in Paris, like this group of artists who are like, coming together in the park and making art
Kind of like
basically.
a collective type thing.
Yeah, because I get the same people coming every week and then sometimes there'll be new people and then some of them will stick onto the sticky ball and we'll just roll around and do creative stuff together. Uh,
So like when you go about starting, when you had the idea to start it, were you just like, hey, I want to do this. Let me reach out to a few of the comics that I'm close with and see if they want to do it with me. Is that how you kind of went about it, or?
I can't remember. I think I posted about it just like there are certain groups on Facebook that are like this is the only reason I'm still on Facebook basically. Like there's like different groups. Now there's one that says New York City outdoor comedy, but that didn't exist
Yeah.
yet. But I posted about it and then this girl Anya, she also runs some mics and she has an online list of like all the outdoor comedy shows. She was like,
Uh-huh.
hey, I heard you're doing this, do you want to post on my whatever?
Yeah.
But I can't remember. It's that's I don't know. It just feels like things are changing so fast. Like since March of last year, or this. Sorry, it's still 2020. I keep forgetting.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
things
I
have
think
changed so
I think
fast.
when this year's over, like we're just gonna be like, oh well, 2020 was kind of shit, but
Well, the Spanish flu of 1918 lasted for 2 years, so I feel like it's gonna be like that.
yeah, I
Hopefully,
don't
not.
I mean I don't want to get all like, that's why I'll occasionally go on Facebook, but I use Instagram more than Facebook because Facebook I just feel like is just people are just posting a lot of garbage now.
Oh yeah,
I
I
go
know.
on there, it's
Definitely.
politics this, politics that, you know, getting bombarded with, have you registered to vote? Have you registered to vote? I'm like, I'm fucking sick of seeing this every time I open the app.
Well, the only time I use Facebook is to find out about comedy stuff. And sometimes I'll post my events on there, and that's the
Yeah.
only way I use it. But I also actually, my comedy Instagram page got, what is it called? Restricted by Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, because I use this program to like unfollow people that didn't follow me because I had like way too many.
Uh-huh.
They were like, we've seen that you used a program to gain followers unethically. And I was like, well, that's not what it did, but um
That's
yeah, I
crazy.
got
You
kicked
only
off.
hear of that like happening to like, I mean, I've only ever heard of stuff like that happening to like major celebrities because like they posted something somewhat offensive or something, but that's crazy. That was it just temporary, obviously,
Yeah,
or
it goes back on the 13th. So right now it's really odd. I can still post things on my story and I can still message people, but I can't like anything or comment on anybody's stuff or post on my actual thing.
the actual feed, but you can do stories, you can DM people, but man, that sucks.
I know. So I've been using my other one that was just like my anything goes page, but people are getting confused when I do that because, you know.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm still trying the whole Instagram thing is weird. Like I have my personal one, which pretty much just I post whatever, and then the one for this, I only post things about this. So, but I'm trying to get traffic to the podcast from my personal one. So when I make a new post, I post it to both of them, and I just apologize to people like, "Hey, you're going to be tagged a bunch of times. Forgive me. Please don't think it's annoying, but I mean, I think sometimes I would think you'd have to do that. I mean, I'd imagine that could help, even if it confuses people a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it's more like when I didn't realize I could message people on my comedy account. So I did it on my regular account and that was what They're like, "Who is this? Hello." Oh, but I forgot. So you asked me what the tiny cupboard is, and I never finished telling you what it
It's
is.
okay, tangent, like I could be mid-sentence and then like my brain will shut down and I'm like, what was I talking about? And my friend just like laugh at me like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm like, what? It's like, I swear I'm remotely smart, but that doesn't, I don't know. I'm not as what's the word? I like to think I'm dumb. I'm not really dumb, but I'm kind of airheaded at the same time. Like I'll
Mhm.
pick up on certain things and I'll be really intelligent about certain topics. And then we could just be talking and I'll be in like mid thought and like, it's like, just like my brain shuts down. It's almost like a robot. Like, wait, what was I saying?
Yeah, I can see that. That happens to me.
Tiny cupboard. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the tiny cupboard is in Bushwick, which is like a cool area to live if you're an artist. And it's basically in an like an art built, what is it? Like an artist building, like everybody you can rent out a studio and do whatever, like
Kind of like where you'd put like a art gallery or something.
I guess you could, but it's more like where you're working on something. So like if you're a painter, it's where you go and make
Oh, okay.
paintings, or there's like different businesses out of it. Like there's a guy that like processes film and stuff. So the roof, there's a roof, and the roof is like really huge. And so they do the thing that you're talked about where they space out chairs two at a time. So it's just like
Mhm.
this really big space. And then Tuesday through I think it's Sunday, they have shows and open mics and stuff. And it's just turned into like the new venue to do comedy. Like it's just the place. If you have a show there, it's like you're in it, man.
Yeah, because
You're
I've heard like, and I've seen the tiny cupboard mentioned like several times across Instagram, and I've definitely heard of it. That's why I'm like, oh,
yeah.
so it's definitely obviously one of the more popular outdoor things going.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like all the comedy clubs were shut down, and then the comedy clubs were doing a thing where they were just doing, I mean, they're still doing it, going to the park and doing a show. And the comics are like, why would I pay to go to or be in that show when I could just do my own thing and it's also in the park? Like they don't have anything
Yeah.
that I don't have. So it's like taking out the middleman kind of, and it's kind of like been a renaissance for comedy here. So
I don't know, but I imagine setting up like an outdoor show would be a lot easier than doing one at an actual club, like indoors.
well, you can't, it's illegal to do it inside.
Well, yeah, because so in New York, you literally like the inside's just closed, period.
So right now, there's 25% occupancy for like restaurants now.
Mm-hmm.
But like certain zip codes were in the city were shut down, like the restaurants were shut down because of the Hasidic Jewish community, like having events where they didn't have masks on and being together. And that was like what started the um what is it, the outbreak here originally.
Uh-huh.
But now like the Hasidic Jewish community is like protesting, and so I keep seeing stuff. But it's so crazy now when people don't wear a mask, I get really freaked out in public. And there were like 40 or 50 of them that came off the train when I was about to get on, and none of them have masks on. So like crowds of people with no masks is like my biggest fear. So I
Oh
was like,
yeah,
oh my
that's
God.
not good at all.
Yes. And they also closed down a bunch of schools in those zip codes too. But anyway, besides that, um, there's a lot of outdoor seating like at restaurants and stuff. But comedy and music is still prohibited, and basically no entertainment inside. And I get it, like there's a lot of like stuff that comes out of your mouth. So I always use mic condoms, and then I always spray the mic down with Lysol in between. So it's
So
nice and wet.
so like but I imagine like setting up like a show like outdoors is fairly easy comparatively to like back before everything shut down.
I mean, I didn't put on shows before
Or
stuff.
do like a lot of the I guess I can ask you this, maybe like do a lot of like the popular clubs, like now that they're shut down, like do they still like do they put on like outdoor shows, like they like
Yeah, I know Stand Up New York does. I know West Side wait, I don't know if West Side Comedy Club is or if they're just supporting comics that are actually the ones putting them on.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure.
I've seen like the what is it, Stand Up in New York. I've seen a few videos. I don't know, maybe some have changed, but I've seen some where it's you're just standing there in a field talking, and there's like no microphone.
Yeah,
And
well for
that
a while that's what I was doing. I mean, I'm still like with I have a mic on Saturdays at 2 o'clock in the park, but there's less of us and it's kind of like it's just the perfect spot. It's basically two long logs that are sort of round, and then to fill in the gap I'll put like a blanket down or something for people to sit on, so it forms a circle, and then there's trees all around us and there's one person in the center talking.
so it's like not so much spread out like just in a random field. So there's kind of like a sort of enclosed area.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because I imagine that's gotta be really awkward. Because like some of the videos I've seen, there's just a group sitting here, and then there's no microphone. I'm like, oh my god, it must be horrible.
I don't know how without a microphone people will be able to hear you, but like I last Monday there was this band playing like horrible like jazz music, like the saxophone's like doodle doodle doodle. I'm like, we get it, you can make that neat triple sound with your saxophone, but like I don't know, I didn't have my microphone because I had heard about the outbreak of more COVID, like the numbers had doubled in a month, and I was like, oh my god, I can't share a microphone, but I have this little speaker that you can wear on your shoulder, and there's a microphone, and I'll bring that to the park, and it works pretty well.
That's cool. I imagine that's not like um a pain in the ass to drag around. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
it's
it's
pretty
easy to
light.
carry.
Yeah. But yeah, the music was like you could really hear it when you're standing up by the tree, and I was like, I can't believe anybody's enduring this, but this is we don't have another option.
I mean, I imagine you can make it funny depending on, and you could probably even kind of work that in, like, hey, this band sucks or whatever.
Yeah, well, yeah, I talked about it because it was like totally wedding music. But the other thing was when you're outside, there's always just like noises everywhere. So, like, or things to distract you. So, like, this last Monday, also, there was a raccoon in the tree. It was really high. I didn't know they could go that high.
Oh yeah,
But
I
then,
saw the pictures of the raccoon.
oh, yeah.
It was
And
at
then
night, right?
well, not at first, but like when it got darker, he came down and he was waiting for a moment that we were distracted to like leave the tree. But then somebody took I didn't know this, but the until later in the picture, the raccoon like peeped out from the tree and his little head was right there. Oh, so cute. Um
So like when did you decide like that stand up is what you wanted to do, or have you been doing it a while, or
So when I was a kid, I watched SNL a lot, and I've always been funny. Like I always wanted to do comedy, but when I was younger, growing up in Cincinnati, Ohio, aka the armpit of America, uh, I didn't even know you could be a comedian. I didn't know that was something even possible. Um, and I don't know. I kind of would just, because I was really shy for so long, I would just put it off. Like, I was like, I want to do comedy, but I should just wait until I'm somewhere where I can do it. Um, and it just took me a while to get to a point where I could do it, I guess. So, like, when I was going to school in Savannah, I did it.
yeah.
And then, I don't know. What was the question?
Oh boy. No,
um,
like when was, yeah, what was it? Yeah. When
So
was,
I've been doing it for about 4 years.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to in Ohio twice, and it was both times it was Akron, and I didn't really care for it.
It's ugh.
Wasn't a lot going on there. The only thing I'd say the highlight of those trips were those little drive-through places where you pull up in the car. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, a movie? Drive-in movies?
No, like literally like a convenience store, but it's a drive, but you drive in.
Oh, yeah. It's like a barn you drive through and
Yeah.
yeah, those are fun.
Like, oh yeah, I'll take this, and they bring it out to your car, and you don't even get out of the car.
Yeah, there's
That's
a place like that that has Geta Pizza that was near me, so you could order beer and go through the bar and get beer, but also get Geta Pizza, and it was like this huge box. They like jam it through your window.
that's cool. Yeah, that was the highlight of my 2 Ohio trips, other than the long drive, and then there just wasn't a lot to do there, from what I remember.
Yeah, it's funny, like a lot of people were really freaked out being in the city and there's like nobody around, for a while because you're used to the streets being really busy. And me and my partner started a moving and packing business basically during COVID
Mm.
to make some money and also get out of the house. And like he was really like, oh my God, there's nobody around. And I was like, yeah, it's just like being in Ohio, except it doesn't suck. Cause because like nobody walks there, everybody's in their car. And like it's like they revitalized the downtown in Cincinnati and it's like nice now, but like nobody knows how to have a nice walking city. Like there's still nobody ever walking around, which is really odd. So
I have to ask because I'm drawn to it. This is your wall painted, or is that just a big piece of art hanging up?
oh, my sister is a painter, and so that's one of her pieces. They're really big.
I
On the
think
books.
I see a partially naked guy and a fully naked guy. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
here there's nope, you're right. There's a three figures and then there's this little one. I don't know. It's awesome.
No, it
There's
looks cool. It looks cool. I just laughed. I was like, oh, there's a naked guy on the wall.
yeah, it's actually a really big painting. It's like 3 feet by 4 feet, maybe. Um,
it's really awesome for a background.
yeah, there's more stacked up over there. So
Now, before we wrap this up, is there anything specific you want to plug or what you have
sure.
going on?
Yeah. So this coming Tuesday is the show at Tiny Cupboard at 8:30 and Rosebud Baker is headlining. Woo! I'm so excited about that. I hope she actually shows up. I've just had headliners cancel before and then I have to replace them at the last minute, but
Yeah.
it's all part of the job. And then I don't know. I guess I'm just hosting a lot of stuff. So
So like
yes.
your regular things, like when is that? Like the ones you do on a regular basis?
So I have my Monday mic in Prospect Park at 5:30. Tuesday is the show at Tiny Cupboard. And then I just started this past Wednesday, so yesterday, doing the open mic for it's women and LGBTQ at Tiny Cupboard at 6. Is that right? Yeah. And then I also have one on Saturdays at 2. It's a lot of stuff. It's better if I don't know.
Well,
Um,
yeah, they can also learn to look on your social
oh yeah.
media and all
Yeah.
that.
So my social media or sorry, my Instagram is Annie in the City 2020. I can't update it right now. So I'm going to be posting stuff on Annie in the City _, which is my personal account. So
Okay. Well, this was fun. I appreciate you doing this.
Sure.
Glad we could finally make this happen.
Yeah. My busy schedule. I'm being sarcastic. Okay.
Yeah, same here. Well, again, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Please follow the podcast on all social media at Life's a Bit Pod. If you're listening, please rate and write a review. If you're watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. New episodes every Friday. And remember, it's okay to laugh.